Welcome back to Incite Club, and today we're talking about how, all the ways we punish ourselves with assumptions. Stay tuned.
The first rule of Incite Club is you don't talk about Incite Club. You do Incite Club. The second rule of Incite Club is the only assumptions we make about one another are that we all want happiness and we all want to avoid suffering. The third rule of Incite Club is you check all your other assumptions at the door. We hope these conversations will bring you insights that incite you to action. Welcome to Incite Club.
And you ask yourself, where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
So, where is your mind?
I've just noticed something about our intro that I've never noticed before that's completely relevant to our topic today. I've just noticed that we wrote the line, the only assumptions we make about one another are that we all want happiness and we all want to avoid suffering. And I was like, oh my goodness, we didn't even think about what are the assumptions we make about ourselves.
Yes.
Like, in creating that, like, I guess I was assuming it's only important to rein in the assumptions we're making externally and I didn't even consider what about the assumptions we're making about ourselves.
That's a really good point. Yes. Yeah, because everything that we say to ourselves, all the narrative that we have in our mind is based on the assumptions that we have about ourselves that sometimes can come from, oh, but I think someone thinks this of me, or I think that person expects this from me, but it's all inside our mind. We don't really know.
Yeah. And I'm just feeling right now with a lot of world events how much human beings operate on projection. Like, this is the thing I'm judging in myself. This is the thing I can't accept about myself. What am I doing? I'm projecting it out. And so in the US, we're coming up on an election. And so it's like, oh my goodness, all of my YouTube ads are political candidates just raking each other through the mud, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, I get the strong sense that you do not like that about yourself. And so you're projecting it outward. And I think it's a very common human trait. And for me, politics are like a magnifying glass on human culture and human society. Because it's an arena where it's been okay, like it's been somehow made okay to just be really mean and nasty and cruel, and people say things and operate in a way that we teach children is not okay. Like, we're saying, well, we don't lash out at people that way, and we don't use those kinds of words, and we don't, like, all these behaviors. But it's an arena where it's not only allowed, but it seems to be like multiplying and growing, and in my country anyway, like getting more intense. So I'm just, I'm like, that's been very much on my mind, and going, it's really a shame when we don't heal things in ourselves and we make negative assumptions about ourselves, because not only does it hurt us to live with, but we end up really hurting other people, because the pain of not being able to love ourselves, one extreme, it's not the only path, but one extreme is we can't deal with that. And so we just reflect it completely out and go, it must be the other people around me who have this bad trait, not me.
Yeah. And the truth is, we only judge ourselves we only judge others to the extent we judge ourselves. And it's so funny because there's even that saying, and with politics, that's so like timely right now, that you it's not judge the word, like you call others what you are, like it's always calling of what you are, in terms of power and like that those power struggles, the rhetoric and so on. And if it sounds like it's something manipulative, that like you're going to call names before you are called. But if we think that we only judge others to the extent that we judge ourselves, maybe sometimes that might not even be conscious.
Yeah. 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 I always am put in mind of the stories you hear about like a church leader who runs the, camp to try to, uh, I'll put in quotations, like rehabilitate gay people,
Mhm.
and then only, of course, for it to turn out that it's that person struggling with their own sexual attraction who can't accept it. And so then like makes a career out of um, like abusing and trying to control other people's sexual
Yeah.
desires. Um, it's like, I mean, that story just repeats again and again, right?
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, it's all projection. And what if we learned and teach the kids as well that projection exists, so that when someone calls you out on something, you have the self reflection to feel like, is this mine? No, if it's not mine, like, what happened to you to be feeling like that and saying these
Yeah.
things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's I think that the beginning of that message is floating around a lot. Like there's a lot of um in my world anyway, kind of content floating around on Facebook that's like, hey, somebody's reaction to you says a lot more about them than it says about you, which is true, but it's very hard to understand. And it's definitely hard to be with it in the moment.
Yes.
If somebody is angry at us, if somebody is telling us we're doing something wrong, I think for a lot of people, we assume, okay, I am doing something wrong. Like that's the first assumption we make is, so there's some kind of conflict, there's some kind of disconnect. I must be doing something wrong. And we internalize it. And it's, I think probably based on our temperament and the the life experience we've had, whether or not we do that. Maybe immediately, some people immediately like are just like, oh, that's definitely not mine. And then some people might immediately go turn it around and like,
Depends.
I know you are, but what am I? Right. That's the ultimate little kid fighting tactic. I know you are, but what am I? Did kids say that, or like the equivalent of that when you were in school?
No,
Oh, so it'd
I
be like you're engaged in a, an argument and a conflict with another kid, and they'd say like, "Oh, well, you're terrible at basketball," and you would say, "I know you are, but what am I?" So whatever they say, you just turn it around. Like it's the
yeah,
embodiment of projection, right? It's like, "Well,
yeah,
you can't do math." I know you are, but what am I? It's like, or like the other one was, I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you, which has some wisdom in it, right? Because it's kind of like noting, you're projecting on me. But that's kind of funny that even from a
yeah.
young age, it's like an instinct to project. I don't want that, so I'm sending it back to you. Um, but for a lot of us, we assume, okay, I am doing something wrong. So how can we in real time believe in that truth that somebody is projecting? How can we become
Mm.
emotionally more resilient, so we don't immediately absorb it, internalize it,
There,
and go, I must be doing it wrong?
there's only one way. It's actually knowing who we are. Like exactly the equivalent of the question that you brought. Like but who am I? Who am I? Right? Because when we know who we are, and I feel like I know who I am in a lot of arenas, there are still places where I feel like I'm still learning, and I still need to dive deeper to understand. But the more we know who we are, the easiest it is to know, like, oh no, that doesn't resonate. And if it doesn't resonate, it doesn't stick. But when we are unsure, uncertain about something, then the attacks can feel like, ah, am I this terrible person? Do I have something to do with this? I know it might be a projection, but still, if it's coming towards me, maybe I have something that is resonating with it. And if we feel that, then it's not even a question of, I feel like it's not even a question that is it real or not. It's either something that, yes, we do have something in us, even though it's a projection. And it is a point to work on that. Or it's something that if we were that, we would be judging, and we would be judging in others as well. And if the
Oh.
judgment exists within us, even if you're not practicing that, it's because the seed is still there.
Oh, oh my God. I just got full body chills. So that's so important because then it's like, oh, I needed for this to come into my awareness. I needed for somebody to project this onto me because what it's showing me is, yes, I would think it was terrible. So one that triggers me intensely is for somebody to think or say, or for me to assume that they're making this judgment about me, that I'm not reliable. And so my opportunity for awakening there is to notice that's a judgment I have. And I definitely have that judgment about other people. I have it about myself. I have it about other people. Am I having it about myself because it's my biggest, or am I having it about other people because it's my biggest fear about myself, or one of my big fears, right? So then I can turn it around on other people and nitpick them. I've just put in mind of I have no idea where it's from, but like the wisdom from the Bible that's remove the speck from your own eye before you'd go to take the splinter out. No, sorry, maybe it's the other way around. Remove the splinter from your own eye before you go to take the speck out of somebody else's. So it's like you notice inside, oh, you have a tiny little speck of dust in your eye. Meanwhile, you've got like a 2x4 sticking out of your own eye.
Yes.
And interesting that it's the eye, because it's like, oh, is that also influencing and impairing your ability to even see what the supposed flaw is in somebody else? But
Yeah.
but also it's like, tend to yourself. I mean, that's a pain. Like before you go, oh, I'm gonna fix you, it's like, what can I heal here?
And why is so much easier, I think, for everyone to see the flaws and even like to help with the pain of others than actually turning towards ourselves? Why do we run away so much from those things?
Do you think it has to do with assuming that in other people, if we help them just with that thing, that speck in their eye, they'll be fine? But that if we have a flaw, we're just fundamentally broken, and like not like it like doesn't matter if I remove this, I'm just still a broken, terrible person for having had this flaw in the first place.
I think you got to a very big thing in here, because it is about how much we know about other people's narratives and how much we know about ours, right? When we look into the splinter in someone else, we we might be seeing just that and that flaw, and everything else is beautiful because we don't know everything else. That's the part that we're seeing, and the rest might be looking good for us. But of ourselves, even someone who doesn't know enough about themselves, we still feel like we know the whole thing. So if there's a flaw, it's one more of so many other things that we can see about ourselves. And like it's having a bigger picture of the thing might feel harder to correct something that we feel is wrong. And it might be that it's not even something that we need to correct. Might be just a matter of, like we were talking before, resignifying some
Yeah.
of the things.
Yeah. I I want to come back to this resignifying, and here's something that sheds a little light on it for me. Uh over the last few months where I've just been in a place of very low confidence about the work I do in the world, a number of people have said to me a variation of this, like, what you do is so valuable, and the income that you generate from what you do doesn't define your worth. And every time somebody has said that, it's just made me so annoyed. It's terrible. Like, people who love me and care about me and are like really mean this. And it's just made me so annoyed because I'm like, but I live in this 3D world and we need money. And it's like, it's a thing. And hearing what you do is valuable when I'm like, I can't, I can't figure out how to like monetize this. It's like, it's just straight up annoying the crap out of me and frustrating me. And then I almost said that to somebody else. And I was like, okay, this is how my friends are feeling about me, because that's how I feel about my friend. Like, what you do is so valuable, and it doesn't, like, it's like, whether or not it's making money right now is not a reflection of how valuable it is. And I refrained from saying it because I know how it's been annoying me. But it was a really beautiful moment of witnessing the difference we feel about the people we see in the world and love and care about and know are, shards and sparks of the divine, just with so much to give and so much to offer, and the way we feel about ourselves. So it's like, from my point of view, the person I almost said this to, I was like, oh, if we just, like, give you a strategy, like everything would be fine. But I like, what I know personally is, I mean, strategy, schmategy, it's like a feeling of uh, everybody else has something to offer and I don't have something to offer. And I don't literally feel like I have nothing to offer in the world.
Yeah.
But that feeling of doubt and that feeling of low confidence, it has a really particular adamancy. It's adamant that it's like, no, this is not fixable, right?
Yeah.
Like, something really flawed with what I have to offer versus what anybody else has to offer that's fundamentally flawed. And so it's like, why bother taking the thing out of my eye? Because I'm still just going to be like a train wreck over here. But you have potential. So if we just take the speck out of your eye, then like you could flourish. And I want to come back to resignifying with that, because how do we get to such a low perception of ourselves? And I think it's a lifetime of signifying. I mean, some people are receiving that very explicitly from external sources. Some people are just literally being told by the very people who should be giving them love and support that they're sacks of shit. And I was like, oh, how heartbreaking. So that's, that's definitely a way that we could receive that. But for a lot of people, I think it's coming from an internal narrator who is continually signifying events and experiences as evidence that we're wrong. And this comes back to the assumption that we're wrong again and again and again. So I'd love for you to say more about resignifying and what that means to you.
I love that you mentioned the low vision of ourselves, because I feel like that's exactly about how much worth we see in ourselves, right? And what you were saying about signifying so much that we don't deserve it, or like that we're not worthy of it, or all this stuff, it's all the ways we are punishing ourselves with our thoughts, with the things that we choose to believe. Even if it's from external sources, we still get to comply or not with the with the information given to us, right? We get to, and I know that when we are in early stages of life, it's harder to separate. Sometimes when you're a child and a parent or someone you love says that you are flawed in this and this and that, it might be hard, really hard for you to separate, uh, is it true or it's not. But later in life, even those things can be resignified, like,
Yes.
and how we resignify this is also part of it, because I know I tried to just do affirmations and say like, no, but I'm this and this and that, I'm beautiful, I am strong, I am this, and whatever it is, the affirmation. If we don't truly believe, I don't believe in that fake until you make it, because it's not exactly the way it works.
Not for internal stuff. Yeah,
Not
maybe
for
for
internals.
like learning
Yeah.
a mantra. Right, where you're like,
Yes.
where they say like,
Just
just move your
mumble.
mouth, just move your tongue.
And there will reach a moment where you actually is are you actually be saying the mantra.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
not
it
for
works.
internal beliefs. Yeah, no way.
No. Yeah, and even like, you can think of this like, um let's say I I want to be successful. Like, let's go for the most general view of success that people have. So I'm gonna put a suit and like, um, put some jewelry and high heels and this and that. For me, it would look like a costume. Like,
Mm.
I'm dressing up for like a, a costume party or something like that,
Mhm.
because it wouldn't fit my personality. And it's the same thing for me, like the whole fake until you make it thing. If you feel like you are a parody of whatever it is that you are trying to be, it's not gonna work like that. It is the experience, or like the creation of a new version of the experience you had, that is going to help resignify. And that's one of the reasons why I love journeys for it, because we get to like re-experience and re imagine things in a new way, and then get the power from it.
You know what is also a significant difference between a journey or, an organic epiphany, versus doing the affirmations is in the former, we're not telling the belief what it should or needs to transform into.
Yes.
So you might be saying, this is the specific belief I would like to resignify, but you're not telling it where to end up. You're like,
Mm,
let's go on this journey, and you follow it. And then we have that light bulb moment where we're like, oh, I'd been signifying it as meaning this, but what just hit me, and I think a moment of epiphany and insight is probably, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's going to be that you would find, if you study this, that 100% of the time, the way the new signification is coming in feels like I'm not the one doing it. Like I just noticed it. It's just like I'm going on this journey with you, and the archetype I'm meeting or the energy I'm meeting gave me the box, and I open it and it was like, oh, it was an acorn and it means this. And it's gonna feel like it comes from outside of us somehow. Or it's
yes.
gonna feel like it comes from out of the blue. And it can be, it can be activated by something that we as facilitators are intentionally giving with a hope that it will land in a certain way. But we're not saying it. We're not like, oh, and then you're going to open the box and you're going to find an acorn. And what that acorn's going to mean is that you can grow or whatever it is. Like, no, it's all done in metaphor. It's done in imagery. It's done in poetry. And
Symbols, archetypes, things that you couldn't create by yourself. Sometimes it's really like just paying attention.
but also things that require us to bring significance to them, right? Like that's why I love poetry so much, because we have to do some making, we have to do some work to meet it. And the magic is happening in that space where we, like we move toward it, and that's what creates like a I don't know, a synergy.
Yes, I love that image. I'm seeing like that liminal space, that void, like where you meet halfway, right? There's these symbols that are coming for us, but we need to do the work of like bringing the unconscious to consciousness so that they can merge and create something new.
Oh my god, this feels like this feels like such an important thing.
Yeah.
Did we just crack the code of how to like heal as a human?
I think so.
Oh,
Ah,
and some time to process. I shared with you before we started recording that one of the participants in this latest round of influential storyteller, we had the first class, and then within like 24 hours, they shared in our what's it called, like a forum, this massive epiphany, and it was based on like you've heard me talk about this before, writing from the scar, not the wound, which is a metaphor, right? And so that's just this is like a storytelling principle that's important for me to share with people, that like started working on them, and like start, it was like hitting one domino, and it goes like this, right? And it just started by like that, hit that, hit that, hit that, hit that. And all this movement that I didn't talk about literally, because I didn't even know this person's experience to be able to say, like, well, that's why you've experienced, it's like I didn't even know. But it was the domino effect. And then they came in, they were like, whoa, that one phrase of writing from the scar versus the wound, they didn't use this language about resignifying, but that's what it was, right? It's like that's what allowed me to take a look at this assumption that I lived with my whole life. And now I'm seeing it in a different way and resignifying it. And now it feels supportive. Now it feels like, yeah, I am meant to be telling stories. I am meant to be writing. And my heart just, I mean, grew 15 sizes. This is why I love doing the work I do. And I'm like, I'm in it for the epiphanies. I mean, yeah, I want to hear your stories and let's do some writing, but really I'm in it for like people becoming that internal narrator with a different tone and a different way of looking at things all of a sudden, and going from the narrator who assumes I must have done something wrong. If people reacted in this way, then I must be, not a good person, or not meant to do this, or not skilled, or whatever it is. That you can shift the assumptions. And that's, I mean, I don't know a different way. I don't think you can go and do like assembly line factory work on your inner narrator. We both agree you can't just say the everything is great, it's light and bright, I am happy, oh, everything's wonderful.
and you're brilliant in that. Like you can bring the best in a story and really like put the help your clients, because I've been a client as well, help your clients bring the emphasis on that big moment that sometimes we just brush over and feel like, oh, that was nothing. And that's part of the problem why we punish ourselves so much as well, because the big things, the important things, the things where we would gather that strength out of us usually are the moments that there's not so much tension, so we feel like, oh yeah, that's nothing. It just passes. But the hard things, the things that really make us feel like I'm a horrible person, or my life is a heck, those are the things that we give the most attention, because they are tense, because we can't really, we get on that hyper focus that we can't see the big picture in those moments. So really bringing that zoom view, that magnifying view to the important happy moments, the important joyful moments, is what brings balance, because otherwise we keep making the bad things gigantic and the good things like just that was just one more thing.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my goodness. The other night I my brain kept me awake all night. Like I would fall asleep and wake up and fall asleep ruminating on I'm writing an article for the food magazine and I was at an event and I got plenty of information to cover the event and write a, wonderful thing about like, oh, this is how fun and here's how you can come to this, events like this in the future. And my brain was waking me up going, you should have gotten a quote from the other people at the table you were sitting with about how much fun they had. So it was like a pattern that's deeply woven for me and I bet is deeply woven for a lot of people of you omitted something, you could have done it better, you forgot something, right? And I share this because like how ridiculous, right? It wasn't I hurt somebody's feelings, it wasn't I should have phrased that more nicely. It was it's like it was I could have gotten even more to add to something positive and I didn't. Like you missed this opportunity and my brain was driving me crazy, waking me up like every hour to tell me this. I was like, huh, what a great example of what we can fall into and choose and make ourselves right. And I was having an anxiety about it as if I'd hurt somebody, as if I'd done something wrong. And I was like, this is very easy to allow to be true. And
Yeah.
like what do we do? I've been creating practices in my own life and also with people I work with. Like this is one of the things I do is ask them what their wins are and what their glimmers were and like remind them to focus on these things. But we need some kind of practice for noticing those moments of because as you're saying, they're going to be calm. So they're not like high amplitude waves on our focus. Um, that has to be part of our practice in order to re-signify and shift our assumption that you're the one who's doing it wrong. Whoa.
Maybe
What are
it's just
personal practices around like noticing things that are good?
I was thinking I'm gonna do this for myself for sure and for the Hot Light Sisterhood as well. I was thinking if you can just create that anchor of a slow motion button where when good things happen you just anchor on that and allow yourself to experience that in slow motion to really receive all of that. That's all we need.
Beautiful. Hit the slow motion button. I think I was talking about the last time we talked, and I don't remember whether it was on air or off air, but just like where it was, I had a moment. I'd been stressed because our kitchen was in chaos, and but then I like came to consciousness and really became present in the moment. Was like, oh, I'm listening to this good music and I'm cooking food and my husband is in the next room and we're going to eat dinner together. Like, isn't my life beautiful and amazing? And it came upon me and I would like to do that intentionally and consciously.
I feel like we can, talking about really signifying, we can see those boredom moments as like there's nothing here and just keep chasing uh the next hit of energy of emotion, which can be good or bad, but it's that roller coaster that we go up and down.
Yeah, like at
Or
least something's happening.
yes, or we can really relax and feel the pleasure in those very peaceful moments. And it's interesting how I know how to slow down and I know how good it is to really like be delighted by the simple things and still like it seems like we want the next plot twist.
Yes. There's a lot of context to support one over the other. Um, Ooh, it's 11:11 where I am. Even just like having our phones, there's always something more we could find out. There's always something we can check into. And there's so much movement in mainstream culture.
Yeah.
And what happened to like we're kind of just sitting around and hanging out and shooting the shit, and there isn't somewhere we need to be right now or something we need to do, and you kind of chilling. Once we That's something that we condone in like college students, but then I think once you get past college, it's like frowned upon. There isn't a space for adults to do that.
There's judgment around it. It's like if you are in that peaceful place, oh, then you should be doing something else.
Yeah.
Where it's another way of punishing yourselves instead of integrating before you go into the next.
Yes. You know what's really helpful for me on this? My cats, who will sometimes, we call it getting kitty trapped, and they'll just come like sit on your lap, and everybody who has a cat knows it's a law. Like you're legally not allowed to disturb the cat. And I like to just sit on the chair on our front porch, and my cat loves to just come sit on my lap at that point. Like he'll ambush me. He's under the bushes and I don't realize, and he'll come and ambush me. And then I'm like, oh, I'm kitty trapped. And often, like with nothing, sometimes I have a book or I have my phone or, something I can engage with. A lot of times there's nothing. And it's like, oh, my choice is to be here or to be miserable. I could choose to be in anxiety and just sit there and it's like, oh, and even though you're not allowed to get up, you can do subtle things that make the cat want to get up. More than he wants to be fed, it's up. But I feel that choice very palpably with animals, because animals are great at chilling. They're like, oh, I got nowhere to be.
Yeah.
But isn't it funny how we all want more downtime? We all want more. I like to watch like house hunting shows. People are looking for their next house. And they'll go and look at a house and they'll go, oh, I can imagine us drinking our morning coffee out here on the balcony, or I can imagine us sitting in the sunroom and having a glass of wine at the end of the day. And really what they're expressing, I think, is they want to live a life where they slow down and enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning instead of like, I gotta, I'm running and I gotta work. They want to have a moment of unwinding at the end of the day and looking at the sunset. And we think the house is going to give it to us, right? We're like, if only I had this house with this sun deck, then I would relax.
And I'll do that.
Yeah. And we want that downtime, but then when we're faced with it, we're so massively uncomfortable. And probably because that's a time when we are alone with our inner narrator.
Yes.
So what kind of narrator have we created, and do we continue to create? And what is she saying to us when we're in those times where nothing else is going on?
Yeah. Maybe the beautiful place to be in downtime might help the narrator be more gentle with ourselves, but it won't do the work, right?
It won't do the work.
It won't do all the work. Like it's not just a matter of. I do believe that environment does make a huge difference, but it doesn't tell the story for you. If we're talking about the narrator, it's still you in the seat of the narrator.
Absolutely. Somebody could be sitting watching the most beautiful sunset in the most comfortable chair and kicking themselves for what they did or didn't do during the day, worrying about what there is to do the next day. I guess that's where yoga, the practice of meditation, all of these things come in, right? Because they're really tools of presence, tools to build our like you do breath work and you build your breath capacity and your pranic capacity, but you also build your capacity for silence and stillness and discerning, right? Like so much of meditation is about coming into awareness that we have thoughts.
Mm.
And just even creating that first layer of separation, right? And going, oh, that's a thought. I'm having a thought. There's a thought going through my head instead of being in it. And then the next level of separation is like, oh, I dismissed that thought. I don't need that thought right now. I just send it away for 20 minutes while I'm sitting here.
Yeah. And it's such an important practice during this lifetime for us to learn to judge less and less until we can judge nothing. Uh, because if it's true, and I do believe it's true, that when we leave this body, we are the ones who are going to be judging ourselves. We better practice. We have a lot to get better at.
Now that is a very sobering thought. I stand before the judge and the judge is me.
Yeah.
My heart will be weighed against a feather. Huh.
Yes.
So what's your big insight?
Well, that cracking code that we did in there about receiving, feeling like we're receiving the resignifying treasure from an outside source and meeting things in that liminal space really felt like yes, there's a huge thing in here. And yeah, there were other moments that I feel that were really big, but that's a big thing.
For me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels life shifting. That feels planet shifting. I love it. And it's the things that we're already doing
Yeah.
in our work for ourselves and also with other people. And yet it's just like I mean, it was a model of that, of like, oh, that's why this is so impactful.
Yeah. And the whole conversation we had about projection as well, because we have a lot of things to look in those things. It's not just about, of course, it's good for us to have that boundary of like, oh, yeah, people are projecting uh, on me, but also having enough self responsibility of at least looking and not just bouncing off everything. Not
Yeah.
to judge ourselves or to blame ourselves, to guilt ourselves, to shame ourselves, but to see what is in here that I haven't looked yet, and maybe I have something to learn.
Yeah, why is this being shown to me? So, okay, it's I mean, it's going a level deeper, right? So it's like, oh, okay, this is somebody projecting this, but they're projecting it in my direction. So there's something here for me to learn. And what you said feels really spot on about it's showing me where I have that judgment.
Yeah.
Like I feel riled up because otherwise it wouldn't. Like I don't have receptors for the things that I really don't have drama and conflict with.
Yeah.
Like somebody's accusing me of being not funny, it just rolls right off me. Like, oh, I know I'm funny. Like you can't touch me with that one. I know at the deepest level of soul that I'm hilarious. So it's like that's not there for me to engage with. But if somebody says like, oh, you're unreliable, or whatever of the other many doubts I have, it's like, oh, I'm meant to engage with that. It doesn't mean I have to take it and believe it and internalize it and plant it in my garden, but I'm definitely supposed to have a conversation with it.
Yes.
I love that too. So any What does this incite you to want to do in the coming weeks?
Anytime that someone projects, to catch myself and see like, oh, there's an opportunity here to unpack something that I haven't yet, and maybe use the other thing, like finding that liminal space between the projection and something to resignify.
Hmm. I'm aiming for something a lot lower, which is I want, especially because I'm finding myself like so angry right now at every political thing I see. I'd like to just not throw it back because I've then just been reprojecting it and going like, you're projecting, And so I like to just go, wow, that's really triggering me. And I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to just go maybe like move my body or do something that feels really caring and loving, as opposed to just sending that negative energy straight back.
That's really good. Actually, that's something that I've been doing the past few weeks, like catching myself when I am in that angry energy and not projecting. Even like when if I can just like go and move and shake and take that out, great. But if I am with someone else, I either ask how can I shift the vibration right now, and sometimes it's just changing
Mm.
the music in the room.
There you go. Literally changing the vibration.
Literally, right? Because there is a program of like controlling the vibration, and we get to put different vibrations to counterbalance it. But so that's one thing. And we've been through elections in here. So we had just a few weeks ago. So we had that pretty negative energy around. Um, and the other thing is actually saying exactly what I'm feeling without trying to create a story and a narrative about that. Because
Mm.
what I noticed was sometimes I am feeling anxious and feeling angry because I'm feeling like that antenna, feeling all the negative vibration around. And then we start creating thoughts, creating a narrative that it's because of that or that or that. And we project and we like snap in people that are not even doing anything that
Yeah.
would create that. So instead of creating the narrative, just feeling, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling anxious? Oh, yeah, I hear that there's a lot of noise out there that is bothering me and it's making me anxious. There's a lot of people, of course, that are pretty angry right now or like really out of their body. They're not really present. And I'm feeling all of this. So instead of me creating a narrative that I am like this because um, this person did that or that person,
Yeah. Like you're so wrong. And that, yeah. Yeah.
trying to find a reason to blame something out of me, really saying like I'm feeling this and that and that, and it's probably because there's something that is not right, but there's nothing wrong in here. Because then you get to have deeper conversations instead of trying to find the us versus them narrative.
Yeah. 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 And it's especially frustrating. It's just like there's not even another person there, right? Like it doesn't do me any good to yell at my
Yeah.
tablet.
All right, haircuts.
Or like it's like the junk mail that keeps coming to my house telling me, you know, you're gonna die if you don't vote this way. It's like it doesn't do me any good to just get angry at pieces of paper. So yeah, I like that. And I mean, I found that to be so helpful. We've talked about this before with physical pain, to just be like, oh, ow, oh, this really hurts, and just stay in the sensation. It
Yeah.
helps it dissipate so much more quickly than moving into any kind of narrative. And then aren't we also training our narrator that way to be like, I don't need you to come in and make up a negative story for everything that happens.
Yeah.
Mm.
But you can create more stories about the good things that happen.
Yeah, but again, you want to write from the scar, not the wound. So when I'm in that moment of rage and when I'm in that moment of agitation and feeling sad and hurt and, like receiving the projection as like I'm now judging myself and what, like obviously it's agitating me because I'm resonating in some way with it. Um, like that's not the time to create the story that I'm going to get a really like unpleasant story to be in if
Yes.
I write from that place. So it's waiting to create the significance until I can do it in a poetic way
Yeah.
where I'm meeting God halfway.
Yes. Oh, beautiful.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. This was one of the deep ones.
I feel like I learned so much. This is amazing. Okay. Well, if anybody's watching, we hope you learned something too. Share with us what that is.
Tell us what your insights are, and until the next Insight Cup.
Yeah. Here's to taking action.
Yes.